Welcome to Taking Care of Business on News Talk 1180 KERN for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI, the Christian station. We're now on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also on the internet on knookmedium.com, serving Richmond, Oakland, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Your host is Clay Koerner. I'm Marty Pay, and our producer is Greg Held. Hey, Clay, that was a great show last week with Mark and Kathy Abernathy.
Avenue?
It's been a long day. I'm still suffering from a little jet lag. Mark and Kathy Abernathy. It should be a very interesting political year.
It was.
It will be.
Well, it's going to be a great political year.
Yeah.
Depends on what party you're voting for.
This is true. Do you think the Republicans are going to sweep in the Congress?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
That would be a good.
And then the other part of the show was
Frank Gaffney, who scared the heck out of me talking about the electromagnetic pulse.
You know, I went to a presentation Frank did at Hodell's this past Monday night.
You were the speaker.
Well, no,
or
I was
the
just
MC.
I just interviewed him, but he had a presentation already put together, and it was awesome.
Was he talking about that electromagnetic?
Well, that
pulse?
was just a small part of it. Sharia was the biggest part.
Okay.
He was concerned about Sharia
Sure.
law, not the Muslim takeover, but the Al Qaeda type takeover of and all the Muslims that are in the White House and in the government.
Ow.
Yes,
Yeah.
even in our Homeland Security, and advisor to Hillary Clinton as an example.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that one before.
Key person.
What about the electromagnetic pulse, though? That scared the heck out of me.
Well, there's two of them. There's the one that if they send a bomb into the atmosphere 2 miles above Omaha, Nebraska, it'll destroy the electricity throughout the country for about a year, which would kill about 9 out of 10 people in the United States.
Sure.
And then he talked about the electromagnetic pulse that's given off by the sun. And every 150 years approximately, we get a shot of electromagnetic pulse from the sun. And 150 years ago, it just missed the country by a week.
Wow.
And it's due, and there's one due right now.
Wow.
So it depends on where we are at the time it's let off. The sun is always letting off these pulses, but usually they're smaller and they go in different directions.
Sure.
And they burn out after a while.
You know, I was up in Canada visiting my dad, who's not doing too well. But
Right.
One of the guys who was up there is a gentleman who works in that field, and I asked him about that electromagnetic pulse, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "It's
It's
something
real.
we're all aware of." He says, "And it could happen any time." I said, "Lovely." So, but anyways, that would make a great topic for a show.
I'll tell you, I'd like to have Frank back on. Now that I've listened to his full presentation, I have a lot of questions.
Okay, let's have him back on.
Yeah, really.
We can set that up. Now, today we've got a really interesting show. In the second half, I mean, you talk about two totally different guests. In the second half, we have Jason Redman, who's a SEAL team leader, and he's the author of a great book that I was listening to the last week called Trident. But in the first half, we have an old friend of the program, Lenora McClellan, who's written another book, and she brought a friend with her today.
Yes, she did.
And the friend is, introduce your friend, Lenora.
This is Eliana Cruz.
Hi, Eliana.
Hi.
And you illustrated Leona's newest book, right? Okay.
And how old are you?
10.
10 years old. She's already writing books, not writing books, but drawing pictures in books.
And she's on the radio, you know, which is, hey, this is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you go to school?
Norris Elementary.
And what grade are you in?
4th.
Are you going to graduate on time?
I don't know.
They asked me that when I was in high school, and I said, I don't know, just like you.
And you're in the 4th grade, you said? Mm-hmm. You know, the 4th grade was the 3 hardest years of Clay's life.
That's right. I was Athlete of the Year 3 times in a row.
Ba-da-dump. Yes, here every day, 4 to 6. Tip your waitress. So, Lenora, tell us about this new book.
What's the name of that book?
It is called Don't Lay Twitchin' in Someone's Kitchen.
Okay, and the story of Fred the Fly and the lessons he learned. So tell us about Fred the Fly and the lessons he learned.
Well, Fred is not satisfied with living his life outside, so he flies into Miss Arlena's kitchen. He's not content with where he is, and he learns a lesson once he goes into the house.
Mm-hmm. So what's the lesson that we can all learn from
I
this
think
book?
the lesson that Fred learned was stay away from fly swatters.
So is that the lesson we get to learn?
stay away from Mama when I was young.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the lesson is being content with where you are, where God placed you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the lesson is.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you be content? I mean, in today's environment where stress is everywhere, how do you become content?
For me, I just don't worry about anything. You know, I leave it in God's hands. No matter what happens, I'm okay with it.
Well, God gives you the tools, and if you don't use the tools, you can't just totally depend on God to drop things on you. You have to use those tools to do something.
Well, you don't worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. My content is I don't worry about things as they come. I always stay prayerful, and I just leave it in God's hands.
Our guest in studio, Lenora McClellan, and she had a special guest with her, Miss Leanna.
Hi.
So
Miss Eliana.
Eliana. So, Miss Eliana, how did you get involved in this project? And you got to get close to that microphone. Okay, how did you get involved in this?
Miss Lenora was writing the book, and she asked me if I could draw a picture, and she said I drew it really good. So I asked her if I could draw the whole entire book, and she said yes.
So every picture in this book is yours. Wow.
So how are the profits split up? As the artist, I mean, how much are you making on this book?
I don't know.
You don't have to answer that. I'm just teasing.
Well, what happened during summertime, I had the idea of Fred the Fly, and I was trying to draw Fred, and she looked at it and said, that's not very good. And I said, can you do better? And she said, yeah. I said, well, would you like to? And she said, yeah. So then I went to her parents and got permission, and she's a very good artist.
Yes, she is.
So as I talked about what I wanted, she drew the picture exactly the way I described it to her.
Well, you know, it's funny, Lenora, you draw about the way I do, because if a fourth grader can tell you it's not very good,
it wasn't.
That's not a great sign.
I had the eyes down, the big googly eyes, but
yeah. Now, this is your fourth book, right?
That's the fourth book,
yes.
And then I just released the fifth book.
Okay, and what's the fifth book about?
It's called Leaves of Change, and it has poetry from my childhood, from the age of 9 all the way up to the present day. So when I was 9, my teen years, my married years, and all the stuff in between.
Sure.
So it spans from 9 and I'm 48, so it's poetry from my life experiences.
How do you find time to do all this?
Well,
because you also have a full-time job, I understand.
Yes, I do have a full-time job. I started journaling when I was 9. That was how I released things that I went through. And those journals, when I look back over them, turned into poetry. And so they've been there since I was 9 years old. They have dates. I put the date on them, so I know when I wrote them. And so it's just in my quiet time at night, and sometimes I'm writing, and I'll have a little notepad with me, and I'll jot down thoughts that come to mind, and then later put them into poems.
You know, a lot of people are journaling, and more people ought to start journaling, I think, because someday they're going to be looking back and want to know what took place in their life.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, I started, this is a little morbid, but I started keeping track of friends that have passed away, friends, relatives, fraternity brothers, business partners, business associates, just 5 years ago, and I've already got 63 on that list.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and
really?
I looked back the other day, and I said, boy, I tell you, I knew some great people. And I would never remember most of them if I hadn't listed them all. And I'm going to make an effort to start journaling.
It's very important.
Well, you know, seriously, with your life, I mean, as varied
dull
as
as
your
it
life,
is, yeah.
No, as varied as your life is, I think it'd be fascinating to do that. And actually, you know, it's actually even something to leave for your kids.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we're looking right now trying to go back and build up the history, the ancestry, and it's a lot of work. And I wish we'd have started this years ago when our grandparents and our great-grandparents were alive. Yeah. And now we're starting, it feels like, from behind the 8 ball.
Now, I've done something with my parents that I wish I would have done with my grandparents, and that's interview them like I would, you know, on a radio program, and just take the disc and send it to each one of my grandkids, and, you know, just to let them know that, hey, this is your heritage, this is your great, you know, grandmother, your great grandfather, and then they can do with it what they want, but at least that way they have, you know, a record of their background. So when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about your other books. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.